business? Or the first of old business? The first thing of old business?
Yeah.
Silverstone North.
Okay, there we go.
Alright,
All right, you ready to rock?
I'm ready.
We'll call the meeting to order. Tiff, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Garvey,
Present.
Councilman Brennan,
Present.
Councilman Bundy, Councilman Green,
Present.
Mayor Sykes.
President, let the record reflect that we do have a quorum. Run down to department head comments and reports. Rock, what do you got?
Thank you. I don't want to steal his thunder. So residential building permits are starting to come in at a pretty quick rate. We're actually starting to see them from some subdivisions that we haven't seen them from before. Thunderbolt Landing has begun pulling their building permits, and also the Warehouse Depot subdivision. So I know that they're busy. We knew this was going to come. It's just kind of surprising to get it this late in the summer. So I know he's busy with that. Other than that, we're just keeping on, Mayor.
Okay. Shasta. Sorry.
We just ended the summer reading program. We had 600 kids sign up, and weekly we had roughly 200 report each week. So in total, they read 8,643 books, or they could track the hours or minutes, and roughly it was 2,800 hours that they read. We also had a good turnout for our family fun nights. We had 69 show up at bowling. We had our family game night with 61 people. We had our family water activity over at Carl Miller Park with 125, and then we had Vicky's barbecue. Actually, talk about Guam, and we had 51 come to that one, and they actually prepared food. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful turnout. So we thank them for doing that. They did that out of the goodness of their heart. We didn't have to pay a thing. So thank you, Vicky's barbecue. We also got the story stroll panels, the next 20 that will be installed in Richard Aguirre Park, and we're going to be soon strategizing with Parks and Rec where best to put those. And then we'll be putting the books that were previously highlighted over at the walking path. They'll actually get another round over at Richard Aguirre Park. And then we just heard word that the telehealth privacy pod, they are starting installations around July 15th, but they're going to be starting in Boise at Boise Public Library, and then they're going to venture out. So hopefully by August, we'll see the vendor come out and start installing those. That's all I got.
Thank you. Chief.
Afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just a couple things. We're wrapping up. We're starting to wrap up the 4 backgrounds of the conditional hires we made last month. Hope to have those finished in the next couple weeks. We also wrapped up the training I mentioned, the last meeting between the active shooter and the FAT simulator. We were able to pass the training on to the county marshals at the courthouse, get them involved in that. Last item I have is Patriot Thunder. The big motorcycle rally is this coming Sunday, starting in Meridian at 11. Should be hitting Mountain Home probably about 12:15. We anticipate about 1,000 to 1,100 bikes hitting that rally coming down 8th Street going to Carl Miller Park.
Are your times accurate on that? Because
It depends on the start time. We
because
were told by the
that's
organizers
my
that they were
ticket says
leaving.
10 o'clock start time, be here.
They
11:30.
told us they're leaving Meridian.
Okay, so we changed.
Hey, Dennis.
Okay.
Subject to speed of the bikes there.
All right. Chief, is that it?
That's it, sir.
All right, Dennis, you're up.
Just Parks and Rec is running along. We're about halfway through the summer program, which is kind of sad because that means they're halfway back to school. We're setting up our program for this winter, and there will be all kinds of programs in that. So
Perfect. Gene.
Nothing out of the ordinary, just plucking away. They finished up on some of the concrete work that got up to Haskett Street, so we'll just be moving into the next level of it and starting to schedule them for milling out that second half and doing the curve. Outside of that running the sweepers, we've had some breakdowns on the one that we run the most, the Eagle. Outside that, patching, cleaning up, painting, that kind of stuff, so.
Is there a different formula in the paint this year? It just doesn't seem like it's lasting as long.
No, same paint, just, there's a problem with one of our bead dispensers that dumps the beads on there. So we've made them aware of that it's not hitting on the paint right, so what it makes it look a little dull if you look at it in one direction.
Okay. Chief.
Mayor, Council, we're excited at the fire department. We're going to this upcoming Thursday and for the next few Thursdays, we're lucky enough to have the old sequel buildings. We're going to start training in there. We're going to be doing RIT drills, search drills, things like that. We're not going to do anything in the way of, by way of live fire anytime real soon, but a lot of good training opportunities for us up there, with tower work and so forth. So good stuff. And we will have the presence at the Patriot Thunder with the
Flag.
ladder truck and the flag. We'll have it there for representing folks coming in for that. So that's about all I have.
Fantastic. Maybe you should see if Sawyer wants to get in some of that gear and try it out. No, Sawyer?
Yeah, it looks a little hot.
Rich.
Mayor, Council, the transmission line project for the water, they're moving along. They actually put down curb and gutter on the roundabout today, so and worked all their way down 14th on the east side of the road on 14th, all the way to 9th, where the trail will be, where the pathway will be, and then they're going to start working their way up on our side, on the west side of 14th, all the way to 12th, with the rest of it here. Probably start it tomorrow doing some of that. So that's looking, you can kind of see what the road's going to look like a little bit. So that's been really good.
Go ahead.
Okay, and let's see, wastewaters. They're getting stuff on the farm, getting rid of everything like they're supposed to. So just normal stuff kind of going on.
I heard they removed a colander out of a perforated bucket out of the hole that they couldn't bring out all the water, and it got sucked in there.
Yeah, I think they got
all
it
that?
down there. Yeah.
So now they're doing the 1,800 gallons a minute or something.
I'm not
No
sure what
problem.
it's going. They're still. I think that's what it's been going. I know they got that fixed, so it's probably back up to what it was. I didn't check on that. But
Perfect.
Yep. A couple things we did at the RV park, the RV dump site. We're taking out the 2 trash cans that are there because people have just been abusing that and coming down from the hills and just packing those with their trash. So, but what we did was Jake was kind enough to give us one of the little smaller garbage cans that they put the T markers or the T boxes, and so we put it up on the wall or up on the fence so people can put their rubber gloves instead of shoving them down, because if we don't have somewhere to put it, they shove them down the holes for the sewer. So we gave them a spot where they could put their rubber gloves, and so. But we did take out the garbage cans because it just got out of control. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I ask a
Yep.
question? Rich, what's the time frame of West Fifth looking like?
So we're just waiting on Sunrock. I mean, it's probably going to be. I would imagine end of the month. We're going to start that. We will get it paved out before paving is done. So.
Okay, what?
Are you gonna get paved up before paving is done?
Before they can't pave anymore, before the asphalt's done. So I mean,
Okay.
we're waiting on Sunrock to get us a date.
Are they doing the ADA ramps all the way down, or just the main intersection?
I think all the ADA ramps are done, all of that. So it's just going to be curb and gutter on that other side.
Okay.
So yep. So everything else is done except for right there where the village is. We're trying to get that figured out so they can get that in too. So, but all the handicap ramps and everything will be put in before we get the pavement down.
And you said there's going to be curb and gutter all the way down the other side?
On the north side, yes.
Okay. And then I had a question. I'm not sure who to direct it to, either you or Gene, but does the city have any control over mailboxes and mailbox locations? Like maybe within a right-of-way or anything like that?
No, it's the post office.
Okay.
We've tried to
Is there-
relocate them off of the sidewalk to the back of the sidewalk where they should be, but very unsuccessful.
Oh, you've tried that before?
Yeah,
Because they don't want to
got
get
in
out of they want to stay in their vehicle to be able to drop it off.
I was curious. I was going down the road to see if if we can do like gang mailboxes in some locations. I've been concerned with American Legion and how often those mailboxes are smack dab, like right in the center of the sidewalk, it feels like. And if there's anything to do to beautify that up a little bit. And,
That is one, Mayor, Council, that is one of the things that any new subdivision, if they are gang mailboxes, and when they have anywhere like that. When we did the 18th project, the mailboxes, they wanted them on the curb also, instead of the gang boxes, we just had a few of them. If you notice, those are turned different than a lot of the other ones, so they kind of face, they're parallel to the houses instead of being perpendicular to the house. Mostly because we needed to have a 5-foot ADA, so that was where we had to turn them that way. So but we try to work with them the best we can. But
Gene, how long has it been since we've approached the postmaster or whatever for this topic?
Well, I tried to change out some on American Legion and some on some of our projects on 14th, and it basically the existing ones that are where they're at, it's like an act of Congress to move. The ones that are on new projects and stuff like that, totally we can get that all set up ahead of time. But the other ones, it's quite complicated, but I can approach them again tomorrow. I mean, that's simple. Walk in and talk to them.
Is it the same postmaster?
I believe it's the same fella, yeah.
There's a gal in charge now.
It was a guy when I went and talked to him last time, so if there's a gal in there, yeah, it might be somebody new.
Just thought it's something I'm interested in is beautifying,
Oh, yeah.
getting all the weeds out of the sidewalk.
We tried to do it for the ADA purpose. I mean, they don't meet the ADA requirement.
Right.
They were blocking a 4-foot sidewalk with a foot wide mailbox.
Yeah. Thank you.
Pauline,
Mayor and Council, the whiteboard, Google's Drive, the share, that's been updated. We completed 2 more tasks this year. The BDS payments for the utility billing. You guys would have seen your new utility bills. So we're still working through the process of having our customers understand like the how to pay their bills online or at the counter. And then also on that board was the water project for the BLM smoke jumpers. That's been completed. So we keep that updated. If you guys have any questions, please let us know.
and then the billing portion, it will be changed. Of course, first bill run.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some snafus, so you will be able to see how many gallons you have used that month. So we didn't notice that on the first bill run, so we're fixing it as we go. So it's a whole new process. So please work with us or be patient. We're getting all the kinks out. All right, John, you're here. Would you got anything good for the order?
Later, he does.
Okay,
Later.
never mind.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, you got anything?
No, sir.
All right, we'll run down to conflict of interest. Has any council member received information pertaining to or otherwise had any contact with any person regarding any items on this city council agenda? If so, please set forth the nature of contact. Hearing none.
Mayor,
Councilman Green?
I did receive an email in regards to the discussion item we have regarding non-resident user fees.
Okay. And you feel that you're
Yeah,
impartial?
completely impartial.
Yeah, I got that same email.
Okay. What's that down? We'll run down the consent agenda. Council, do you want to pull any items on the consent agenda? Do you want to talk about it? Do you have any more questions needing answered through A through F? If I am hearing none,
Then I'll make a, Mayor, sorry.
go ahead.
I'll
sir.
go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Bundy?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
All right, we'll run.
You missed me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Garvey. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Run down to old business, deliberation decision on findings on Commission recommendation of findings of facts to approve the preliminary plat for Silverstone North subdivision with conditions. Staff provided all the information via email on May 30th, 2023. Items continued from June 27th, 2023. Council, what do you guys want to do? What do you?
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey.
I just want it confirmed on the record that the city will not be asking to take anybody's property that will be affected by the annexation of the road. Does that make sense? So it was discussed that there was going to be some sidewalks built, kind of on the, let me get my bearings here, like Elaine Isaac's mom's side, Pauline's side. And I just want to make sure that that's on record because Elaine's question was not answered fully at P&Z. And I just, for the record, want that stated.
Okay, Rich, go ahead.
Council, I can kind of get on that. So when we looked at the right of way there, we didn't see that we needed to take any more right of way. I mean, I can't say what future, what's going to happen way in the future when things, but with this project, nothing's going to get built out to do that on the north side of the road. I did give a letter to the highway district saying that when you look at Paiute, we already take care of it from Daniels Road all the way to Isaac because the Silverstone was, not Silverstone, Colonial was annexed right there. And then that's kind of picture that I gave you, the drawing that I gave you today. And then we have, because of Gillespie, it's really not, the annexation really isn't with Silverstone North, it was with Gillespie. So the fourplexes that are in front of it, that's what actually annexed, and we did that because Silverstone North is using that entrance to come in and out of the property. And then we also have Paiute Place, which is closer to northwest 5th North, that's going to be annexed also. So we almost take care of the whole road anyway, so we might as well just maintain it because we do have a 24-inch sewer that goes down it and also an 8-inch that goes on the Colonial side. So we're good with that. So
okay.
If that answers your question, Councilwoman.
Yes, I understand you can't predict the future. If you can, you're pretty immaculate. But at least this subdivision is not going to, at this point, be asking for anything like that. That was what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yep. I think you're immaculate. Yeah. I know I'm not.
All right, Council.
I only think he's immaculate if he can predict the future.
Councilman Brennan?
Brock, can you confirm access points here for this neighborhood?
Yes, I can. I will actually use the applicant's presentation to do so. So, Paiute, and then Silverstone, right here. So you have two means of access, same as what they presented previously.
Right, and what's the, is this, a phased project?
Yes.
And at which phase will both access points be available?
I believe we talked about this a little bit in our design plans. If prudent, Mr. Mayor, can I bring the applicant up here as well? That'll answer those questions.
Good evening, how are you all? Patrick Connor, for the record, 701 South Allen Street, in Idaho. To answer your question, right now there will be 2 points of access in that first phase. So all the way to the north to Paiute and then south to Silverstone. As far as the construction drawings that were approved by the city in the fall, I believe it shows the full scope of the development, so it's all in one phase. So all 49 single-family lots and then the 14 fourplex lots as well.
How many phases total?
One.
Just one?
I believe, yeah.
Okay.
I can double check that, but
Seems like that's what it is.
I just want to make sure that we're not doing 3/4 of the development and then the secondary access point.
yeah, we usually always make sure we have 2 points of access, mainly for marketing and construction traffic as well, just to kind of
2 points of access is good, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, it's critical for emergency services and everything like that, so.
Thank you.
Inside joke.
Okay, it's like.
Okay, Council. Any other questions?
I appreciate the new language in here that's mimicking the rest of our stuff about water.
That's a default on all of our staff
Council, what do you want to do? Councilman Brennan.
I'll make a motion to approve P&Z's recommendation and findings of fact for the preliminary plat Silverstone North subdivision with conditions.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Bundy?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
All right. Going down to old business action item number 2, discussion regarding non-resident user fee. Item continued from the June 27, 2023.
Okay.
Councilman Green?
Thank you. So I got more information and we did a little digging. So I had Recreation Department pull a report off of one of their programs because it was going to take several weeks to get it done for all the programs. So we pulled soccer. Soccer overall had a 22% non-resident user rate. So almost a quarter of the participants were non-residents. I know some of them were from the base and some of them were from the county. The other information that I came up with was to figure out what a city resident is paying in essence for the rec department. So the way we figured that out is we took last year's rec budget minus any grants, things like that. It was just over $1 million. And according to the most recent census count, the city of Mountain Home has 16,469 residents, which if you do the math and divide that, you're looking at $66.38 per resident is what goes through for the rec department. So it's quite a good chunk of change. And so when it comes to programs, both the non-residents and residents are paying the exact price, except that again, the residents are paying more through taxes. And I'm not saying that we need to charge the non-residents the additional $66. I'm just saying a little bit per program, like $5 as a non-resident user fee is what I was looking at. That way, it's not too restrictive monetarily wise for them to participate, because I do feel that it is good to help those non-residents participate as well.
Councilman Brennan?
Mayor?
Hang on. Sure, go ahead, Councilwoman Garvey.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, Councilman Brennan. A quick question. I was just listening to your numbers, Councilman Green. You indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, that 16,000, give or take, people are paying into the taxes to.
No, what I'm saying is I took the numbers of what is in the rec's budget and dividing that by the amount of residents within the city. Because you can't do it by property because everybody pays a different amount based upon their property.
Technology, sorry, call failed.
I was like, what just happened? What part of my question was heard and not heard?
I got the whole question.
Okay.
So what I was saying is that we took the rec's budget and divided it among the current census count for the population of Mountain Home, which was 16,469. So each person, if you look at it that way, it's about $66.38 to the rec district. Because you can't really do it by property because each property pays a different amount as their taxes. So you have to.
Right, I understand. Yeah. I didn't think those numbers are correct. That was my only question.
Okay.
Councilman Brennan?
Taking the one program you looked at, soccer, is it just spring soccer, fall soccer, or both?
This was fall soccer.
Oh, of the rate you provided, 22% non-resident participants. Was there a waiting list at all of people that did not get to play?
No, I do believe with soccer, anybody that signed up did get to play.
He's not saying he's yes or no.
There was a waiting list, yes.
There already was.
How big was it?
Probably less than 25 people,
Less than 25.
so it's a small percentage.
Typically the waiting list, sorry Mayor. Typically the waiting list is because they didn't make the deadline to register.
So
you're-
they had to cut him off.
Yeah, at some point you have to draw the line.
Sure.
And so that's where you begin to leverage, like I talked last time, you leverage coaching and volunteers and those type of things. So you'd be fortunate if you were gonna help, your kid probably made a team.
Councilman Butler, are you done?
That's fine.
Councilman Bundy?
Okay. First off, I appreciate the work that you've done, and I think it's a great conversation to have, but I've got a couple of questions. Paula, how much, if you have it handy or an approximate, how much of the recreation budget is dedicated funds, meaning user fees?
That was the number that Councilman Green gave
He
you,
gave
the
us-
1 million. We had,
So is everything dedicated? So here's my question, so how much of the budget cost me $30 to play? That goes into the budget, correct?
that's the user fee.
The user fee. So how much of the budget is actual user fees? Does that make sense?
Mhm. Sure, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to break that down.
Okay,
right
so
now.
let's just assume we could make up a number, it's 10%.
Okay.
Right, so that would lower the individual price per person by 10%. Because that's being paid by the people that are using the service, correct? Right, if I play soccer for $25, that money goes into the budget and then it's recycled into the budget. The other question, so I think that we have a big chunk of the budget which is covered by the individual user fee.
Yes.
Okay. Another major source of revenue for the city is sales tax, correct?
Yes.
About what percentage of our budget is sales tax driven? It's another double-digit number, correct?
Correct.
So if I live in the county, and I come in and shop at Walmart, the city of Mountain Home benefits from that sales tax, correct?
Yes, this is based on the population.
Correct. So my point there is, I think your formula was valid and interesting, but it's much more complex than that. That's all I'm getting at. You have user fees that go into it. You have sales tax that go into it. You have all kinds of things that go into the funding. I'm a little bit concerned that I know you can take the good neighbor policy too far, but I think in this area, I think it fits. I like the good neighbor idea. And it's my understanding that the base is now, in many ways, using our recreation facilities and our recreation leagues for their children. And they would be considered a non-resident if they live on base. If they live in town, they're not. And you see where I'm going with that one. So I think that we have some problems there. Once again, not problems. I think we have some good neighbor policies that we want to make sure that we do. So I like this discussion, and I don't know if, and then we also get into how much money and who's going to monitor it. Are we going to have to hire extra staff to look at this? When I looked at this, it seems like the only thing we ever had a weight on was maybe soccer. Most programs fill up? Do you guys know?
Dennis, do all the
Dennis,
programs
do
fill up?
Do the programs fill up?
Most all programs fill up.
Okay.
Our adventure camp,
A lot of them fill up.
being a good
so,
example of it.
And that's fine.
We've
So-
got a long waiting list.
Okay, and those are things that we take into consideration. I'm a hard sell on an additional fee to the non-residents. Now, maybe when we talk about other things, where people are traveling in to play golf, maybe we do that. I don't know. than we do a county in the city. But when we're talking about kids and base personnel and soccer teams, I'm a little bit, I would hate someone to not play because they have to pay an extra $5 or they have to wait to sign up until signups are open for them. That's my only point here, is I'm a little reluctant because the tax formula, I think, is much more complex than a simple number divided by number of residents. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Okay. Councilman Brennan.
I do agree with Councilman Bundy that it is a lot more in depth, numbers wise. And I do like the idea of playing well with the base population, and but is the base a better, Parks and Rec partner than the people that aren't in the city and aren't on the base as well? Like, so it's like all or none, I think. The email that we did get, I thought had a valid point, and again, anybody can argue this, is that rather than making it a monetary thing, give the city residents simply a few days first to sign up before the program fills up, and maybe that's a better starting spot. But very valid argument, Councilman Bundy. I appreciate that. But I think there's got to be an incentive, even if it's small, to a city resident to maybe they just get to sign up first for 5 business days. I don't know how long signups usually last for, but I wasn't getting stairs. Oof. All right. That's my thought. So I don't know if anybody wants to argue to or against that. No, I'm good with it.
Okay, that was the discussion. You want to bring back further items for discussion, Councilman?
No.
Councilman.
Councilman Green, are you giving up on it?
Not
here?
giving up.
Or
I'm not giving up. I'm just not. I've got to figure out how I'm going to proceed.
okay, I'll let you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's run down to action item deliberation decision on a management venture's request for a letter of support regarding the Elmore County tax exemption. Item continued on the 27th, 2023. Councilman Brennan, did you have a chance to?
I did. Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one here. First, I want to say thank you to the city staff who took the time to cut the audio and send it to me. It was clear. I could hear all of it. As I said in the last meeting, I didn't ask any additional questions of the applicant. I simply listened to the record as it is. The one thing that I didn't get out of this request is the applicant answering the question of why. Why are they asking for such a large tax exemption? And maybe you could say they answered it, and maybe they didn't, but the only thing I could put in that category as to why they're asking for it is simply because it doesn't, they need more money essentially to make their project pencil out. Don't we all need more money to make our project pencil out? I don't want to go on the attack by any means, but I put on the record before that I agree we need a multifamily housing development here. And some will say we need lots and lots of them, or however many you think, but getting one so that I can stop hearing the argument about the comparables with the lending market on the commercial side. And so I was willing to do the, what do you call it? Impact fees at the time of occupancy. And I was really not very supportive of the property tax exemption. The information that I got was that this project could be fully developed within, I believe they said 3 to 27 months on the record, on that recording is what I heard. Sound about right? And so if they can be fully operational, I'm gonna say 24 months, then why do they need a property tax exemption to 5 years? They'll start recouping their money as soon as the units are filled with the certificate of occupancy. I'm sure they'll have no problems filling it up, and even if it's not 100% full. I went through the handout that they provided on the potential of undeveloped land, and I do understand if that land sits there for another, 40 years, and it continues to be undeveloped, the city will miss out on a lot of tax infrastructure, a lot of tax money for that undeveloped land. Now, if it gets developed right away, we start taking in a lot of money, but not until year 6, really. But why waive the property taxes for multi-million dollar commercial developers that aren't from here, when we're not willing to waive property taxes for anybody else that does live here? Again, I think that argument comes back as to, well, they're going to do other things too. They're going to build a brewery, and so what kind of promises are we getting from them that if we waive this, they'll do this? Well, there are no promises. They're simply just asking for less of a fee, and I can't get behind that when, again, all of our residents, our local developers aren't getting that. I think it's also important to say that this request, although this discussion was had in a special meeting, it wasn't held in a regular general meeting. So if this request is approved by Elmore County Commissioners, this would be the first of its type in all of the state of Idaho. And I mean, I'm all for blazing trails, but I don't know if that's the intent of the true legislative intent of how this tax exemption possibility came to be. Councilman Bunny, was that before your time, or
Which one?
the?
Let counties do the tax exemption.
Okay. So you might be able to twist my arm and say a 2-year tax exemption, and again, this is not 100%. The request is for an 85% tax reduction. You might be able to twist my arm to a 2-year one, so that they can get off the ground and we can get that one development ready to go. The land is purchased, the building plans are submitted. What do you call it, Brock? At what stage are they at?
Their development plans have been submitted and reviewed.
Approved.
Approved for Elkview? If they're not approved, they're with our engineers going final review, but they're
Third party review?
Yep.
Okay, so they're right there. I'm gonna transition and cross this bridge here that I think I talked to our city attorney about just before the meeting started. I have to be a little careful. But there is a topic on this discussion, but it's not this. It is similar with the same applicant in executive session coming up. So I won't talk the details of that. Well, I'm gonna go down as far as you said I can. Is that the same applicant is buying other land contingent upon the city pre-agreeing to a land.
Object to, I believe we've gone into more than you want to on that executive session.
Yeah, you could, it's probably fair. Try to keep it to what's on the discussion for this. You can mention as much as that, how it impacts your ability to deal with the issue that we have before us right now. But I wouldn't approach too far into the topic for executive session.
I'm not sure where that line is at. But
Yeah, I'm not sure, quite frankly, I'm not either.
But it weighs heavily on my mind as to if one decision is approved, right, it has a direct correlation to this discussion that is an action item. So, and maybe you can table one until after the other, but at that point it's still a discussion within executive session.
Yeah, it still is.
Bottom line, they're asking for a real steal of a deal from the city on another project, and it just, you get something in this hand and you get something in this hand, and it just doesn't seem fair to the citizens, to me. I guess I'll leave it at that, but this letter of support that the city wants, well, I won't say that the city wants to send, this letter of support that is requested to be sent to the county, I'm not gonna support it. As requested, a 5-year tax abatement of 85% taxes, I'm not supporting that. If anybody wants to go into renegotiating a possible different letter to the county, I'm in full support. If the letter gets, if it's a 3-1 or whatever vote, then I want my opinion specifically spelled out in the letter to the county. So it's not just majority says yes.
Okay. So, council, with that said, with the regarding the Elmore County tax exemption letter, what do you guys want to do?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Bundy.
I think that the sentiments that Councilman Brennan expressed, we've all had. This letter is not granting a tax abatement. This letter is simply a letter to the county commissioners that we support the project, and then they can make their requests to the county for what they need. This is the tax abatement question is simply is done by the county commissioners. What the county commissioners want from us is a letter saying that we support this project, so that they know that we support this project, and then they will go ahead and make the determination on what they do to bring this project to fruition. So we're not requesting, what they're gonna request is what they briefed us, but that's not what we're gonna request, and that's not what we're gonna approve. We simply are talking about a letter of request for the project that we will send from the city to the county commissioners, and then that group will go to the county commissioners and make their specific requests, and that's where they'll be either allowed or not allowed. So that's, I'm not disagreeing with you anything, I've had those exact same thoughts, and I think they're valid questions. But really, in my opinion, what we're doing here, and it was brought up, this has nothing to do, in my opinion, with anything that we're gonna do later in the evening after this meeting is over. Those are two totally separate issues. This is simply a letter from the city that we support this project as we have done in multiple P&Zs and votes along the way, to put and then we'll let the county commissioners determine how long, how much, what they're gonna do with the tax abatement.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Councilman Brennan, are you saying all we're gonna write is a letter that says we support Gulfview Apartments and not talk about taxes at all?
Well, that's what we can put in the letter. We can put in the letter what we want.
Because as printed here, that's in front of us, it says, in conclusion, we urge the Elmore County Board of Commissioners to seriously consider granting tax exemption for the Gulfview Apartments project.
Yeah, and that's what you said. We can change that to say how we want.
I would just,
Go ahead.
I would just need the direction to remove tax exemption out of it. And this is a draft, so
Right.
any edits can be made to it.
So council, when they approached us for the C of O, I was I told y'all, I don't have a problem with the C of O because we're gonna get the money later, right? I did have a problem with the tax exemption. You know, I did see the brief printout, I loved it, but in the same sense, I agree with Council.
Go ahead.
Councilman Brennan, 5 years is a long time. So I even said to Jag and Kevin, you know, 3 years, you know, maybe it's 75, 50, 25, but not 5 solid years of no tax. So however you choose to vote this evening, just know that where I stand. It might be 3-1, it might be 4-0, it might be 2-2. I just want you all to know where I just want to make it very clear where I stand. So other than that, I'll shut up. So council, Councilwoman Garvey.
So I too have had the same thoughts. I think we've all have thought these thoughts of, wow, this is a lot, this is a long time. Daniel asked or said that, you know, they didn't specify why they need it. You know, it's a $33 million project, of which they have, people that are loaning their hard-earned retired money out to do this project, and they need a certain rate of return. Now, the problem is what I see is that they need a certain rate of return, and it looks like it's coming off of the taxpayers' backs, but they're putting their money on the line for Kevin and Jag to build something in our community that is much needed. And also, the intent of the state statute, if maybe that wasn't the intent, it was still written that way, that's an exemption that's allowable to be asked. So, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb. I support it. I support them. I support Gulfview Apartments. Maybe it's only a 3-year tax abatement that they receive. That's also fine by me, but I just want to see this project go. So.
Thank you. So council, is it a 3-year that you want to put on there? Do you not want to put anything on there? How do you want Ms. Tiff to draft this?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
I like the idea of what Councilman Bundy said. You know, that's fine. We can take out the language of the tax exemption, but that we support the project. And then, unfortunately, I think that the county is looking for a little bit of taking this weight off of their shoulders to make this decision. So take out the language of the supporting a tax exemption. I mean, they're going to know that we support the project if that's what we decide to move forward with.
Councilwoman Garvey, do you have if you take it out, do you have maybe an alternative, like a recommendation that you would support if they want that or they need that in there? Let me ask Councilman Brock, what do they need?
So I can tell you that the tax exemption language is what they asked you for. And at the last meeting, you agreed to that language. So, no, it's not, do we support the project or not? We know you support the project. You approved the project. What I would recommend that you need to decide, are you willing to put your name down that yes, we support a limited tax exemption, however you guys see fit for this project? That's the hard question being asked at this moment.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan.
I completely agree. Is the county doesn't need a letter saying we support a project within our own city that has nothing to do with, really nothing to do with Elmore County, other than they'll be able to collect taxes on it, right, for time and all eternity. I think that the real thing that this boils down to is taxes.
And what I would think is best is, and it's okay if you guys disagree. You're supposed to disagree. You're a body, but that's what's being asked. And I think that's kind of the expectation of what they're hoping. And irregardless if you support a tax exemption or not, I think the right thing to do would be to determine, is that what this body is ready to illustrate to the county?
So council members, do you want to do the full 5, meet in the middle? What do you guys want to do?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan.
I'm going to make a motion to deny granting a tax exemption.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bundy.
point of order, the denial of a motion is not on the agenda, the acceptance of a motion is on an agenda.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey.
also, we can't deny the tax exemption. That comes from the county level. So, I, Councilwoman Garvey, fully support the letter as written.
Okay.
Mayor, can I amend my motion?
Absolutely.
I don't quite understand Councilman Bunny's point of order.
That's legal. A motion of something that's not on the agenda is highly irregular and confusing, because then.
Well, a motion, so a motion to do it ends up sounding like a double negative.
Okay.
May my mother, English teacher, rest in her grave calmly without ever doing that. So when the motion is to request something, basically you're remaining silent on it. I mean, if the motion is to approve this thing, and then obviously if you're not going to approve it, the motion isn't that it's going to be the failure of anybody up here to say I move to approve it means it fails by operation. So it's redundant to say to move to do a double, like basically a negative. You're getting really deep in Robert's Rules of Order, by the way.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with this. Councilwoman Garvey, is that a motion? Are you gonna make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the letter as written to go to the county commissioners.
There is a
second.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion, Councilman Brennan?
As written, I know it's a rough draft, but it needs some changes. Even if this is the full intent of what. Tiffany, do you see what I'm talking about? Read that first sentence.
Oh, grammar, yeah.
And okay.
Okay, I will, excuse me, Mayor, I'll amend my motion to state that this is a draft and it's not as written with fixing the grammatical errors.
Okay.
But the language in the letter is what I support.
Okay. Sorry, Councilman Brennan. Go ahead and finish.
I apologize.
This letter also does not say how long the tax exemption is for, right? We support a 5-year, a 10-year, a 3-year. It doesn't say how many years. And it doesn't say 85%. So 100% tax exemption, 50%, 85%, it needs to say that. So this needs work for sure. No matter what, I know I'm drawing all these issues out. I'm not going to support it, and if it gets approved, I want the letter to say I don't support it.
So council, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'm going to bring up that there's, without the grammatical errors all aside, I want to know, are you supporting 5 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 1 year?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey.
I support the request that they stated, 5 years at 85%. No longer. Absolutely not.
Okay. Say 85 on here.
There's no time.
And then
I'll make the edits and send it, Mayor.
thank you. I'm gonna have to scroll and find it. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Bundy. Aye. Councilman Brennan.
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. It passes. Run down to
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan.
with that, will you honor my request to put my statement in there?
Absolutely.
That I don't support it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. Run down to items, new business. Items number 1, remove consent. There were none. Action item number 2, deliberation decision on Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation findings of facts to approve rezone R4 PUD entitled Fairfield R4 PUD with conditions. Staff gave you the report on June 14th. Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Legal may correct me and say it's not a big deal, but I talked to Tiffany and Brock earlier. I think we need to do the vacation before we do the rezone. So we need to swap 2 and 3. And again, maybe legal will say it really doesn't matter because it's all the same, but I don't think we can rezone property that we haven't vacated.
Well, she's Councilman Garvey. You're correct in the first statement that it really doesn't matter. But I would say that you can in fact rezone property even if you're going to vacate it later. Zoning technically comes before platting and or vacation anyway, so it's probably better that you do the rezone first. The only problem which you didn't say but would be appropriate for if you wanted to do 3 before 2, but honestly, it's fine.
Okay,
Is
all
that
right, great.
you're rezoning, you're gonna be vacating, the legal description of the R4 part probably doesn't match up to what you're about to vacate later on. So the subdivision, the subdivision's this size, it's about to be this size, but yet you're rezoning the whole thing. Or you're just rezoning this part, which is what I think is happening. So bottom line, this is happening. Yes, one is happening before the other, but this is basically contemporaneous with each other.
Okay.
So it doesn't, you're on the right track, but if we were changing the comp plan and then, or annexing something and then changing the comp plan and then rezoning, the annexing would always have to come first. So that's probably what you're thinking in your mind, but with this.
Probably, yeah, it's just not often we do this, and so I just wanted to make sure it just didn't kind of drive in my mind.
Yeah, this is happening contemporaneously for something like this, and so it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So, council members, what do you guys want to do?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan.
Question. Taryn, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ready for the hot seat?
Never, but.
I have a couple of questions. Can you confirm? Sure. Come on. These are 2-story units, right?
Correct. 2-story units.
Okay. And I'm gonna divert over to the fire chief for questioning now. Fire chief, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. I'll stand back just a second.
Councilwoman Garvey, they gave us kind of like a site rendering.
Okay.
It's a big improvement. Look at that map I got. It's not even close to okay, Chief. I want to talk about the setback requests for this development. Have you had a chance to review these? I don't know if it's you or the fire marshal. I think it's the fire marshal who read through them.
Correct. Brian would have read through we've had numerous conversations about this development.
Could you take that to the chief or somebody? Did you see that?
Here's the next one.
Chief, this request has a request. Sorry, this what is it? PUD. Rezone PUD. All of the above, all the issues we're talking about today, has a request for side yard setbacks at 3 feet for a total of 6 feet between the buildings. As you can see in there, is there any city ordinance or anything that would prevent the interior property owners from putting a fence down the middle of that 6 feet?
Councilman Brennan, I couldn't speak to a city ordinance. Fire code there's not an issue with the fire code. It passes that.
Okay.
I'll agree the density is there, and the compaction of the buildings are certainly there.
So if these are 2-story units and there's a fence going down the middle, so it has truly a 3-foot setback, can you safely put an extension ladder to the eaves of the second story? When I was reading, it looks like a ladder safety is a 4-to-1 ratio. For every 4 vertical feet, the base of the ladder comes out 1 foot.
I won't argue that, no.
What? Okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize for that. So if we're talking 2 stories and roof access from an extension ladder, can you safely get a fireman up a ladder with a fence in the middle without taking the time to rip the fence out or tear it down with only 3 feet horizontal distance?
Councilman Brennan, the only way I could answer that question is that it is met through fire code. It has met the minimum standards to be able to fight fire in there through whichever means that we need to do it. Are they ideal circumstances? No. We would like more room. We'd like wider streets. There's a lot of things we'd like, but we are confined to fire code.
what does the fire code say about exterior walls being so close to another with a line down the middle? Or even if the line it's a 4 foot on one side and a 2 foot on the other?
Well, they would have firewalls, 2-hour firewalls, and these type of things that would be in there. But to answer your question, technically, that would probably be something better to the fire marshal, other than I can speak broadly to the fact that the project has met the minimum standards of the fire code.
Okay, I went on and looked at the international fire code or whatever. Do you know, what's the term for it? I forget. It's a little bit.
There's a international fire code, and then there's an international building code.
Okay.
And then there's the international residential code. This falls underneath the residential code.
Does it fall under the fire code too?
Portions of it do, yes. Fire
Okay.
code responds mostly to commercial projects.
Okay. So in here, the only statement made, hey, guys, please, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I just disagree with the 3 foot setbacks. But I use what is in front of me. And the paragraph 11 on page 6 simply says the fire department has verified that fire apparatus can operate safely on streets measuring 26 feet with parking on both sides. So a fire apparatus, chief, that's just a fire truck, right? Or a ladder truck or whatever. It's not a ladder trying to make a cut in a roof vent for a roof vent or help somebody get out of a second story window with 6 feet between the walls.
Right, I would say that that's a correct description you have there.
Okay. So the city ordinance requires a minimum of 5 feet for each property, which would be 10 feet between the structures for the side setbacks. And then an issue that was brought up by planning and zoning was the off-street parking spaces to be allowed to be done in gravel. And the city's taken a pretty firm stance as far as requiring pavement for parking lots in daycares and basically everywhere inside the city. If it's a parking area, it has to be gravel. And if this, oh, sorry, thank you. Yes, asphalt. And if this lot is too dense that they can't contain their own stormwater on it, then we got a problem. And I don't think we want to go down the road of making that okay this time. And we've held the stance everybody else has to do it. I'm not sure in paragraph 12 on page 6, I'm not sure if this is a typo or if I'm just not thinking clearly, but it talks about the accessibility to South 5th West. We're a long ways away from South 5th West. Is that truly what this means? What road are we talking?
We're at East 2nd and South Street, and South 14th East Street.
Well, city staff has found that due to the size of the proposed development and the accessibility, are you talking an artery? Are you trying to identify an artery that it's
South 14th?
South 14th.
That's a significant collector.
Okay. Again, on the PUD agreement, page 9, I think it's just a typo, but as you read through that very bottom bullet, it talks about lot 3 and 4, and then it talks about lot 4 and 5, and then it talks about where is it? It says 3 and 4, 4 and 5 and 6, 4, 5 and 6. So these are 2 or 3 equal developments of 2 units per rooftop, right?
Yes.
So in there, it identifies lot 4, 5, and 6 as being a duplex. Whatever, you can read through it. It's just a simple typo, I think. Okay, I apologize for just throwing it all out there, Taryn. You know how I feel probably about setbacks. And 3 foot setbacks, it's something this dense in fire safety. what I read, I'm not the professional, right? I wish Marshall Reed was here. But an extension ladder trying to access a second story window or cut a air vent in a roof for a fire, that's not gonna happen on a regular fire truck. And I'm guessing that our ladder truck can't get down between the eaves very easily. That truck would have to be parked absolutely perfect to make that happen. So why the 3 foot?
Councilman Brennan, well, I feel like we're jumping straight into the middle of a presentation. But thank you for the opportunity to present and to answer your questions. So the building code, the residential code, states clearly that buildings are allowed to be as close, separate buildings are allowed to be as close as 5 feet from each other without any fire protective measures. So that's the building code. That's the residential code that this would be designed under. So there are significant differences between commercial and residential construction because of the way they're used. This is a residential construction type, similar or if not identical to single-family detached housing. So 3 feet, is it close? It is, it's close, but we still exceed even where the code starts to get squeamish about how close buildings are placed together. I think a compromise, albeit I don't know if it's better for the residents, would be that we just don't place a fence in between the buildings and allow access from the front itself, maybe at the back wall it can be fenced, with the idea being that, and I would let our esteemed owner or client here share his opinions about why we're doing it in the density we're proposing. And largely it's due to the location in between schools, our primary schools. And housing is, you've heard me say this, I don't know how, for 3 years. Housing's not getting any cheaper. It certainly seems that way. We would like to attempt to change that. And especially for our teachers. We both know teachers that are living in apartments here in town because they can't afford the housing. So this is a proposal that we believe can help with that problem. So
I think if you're renting the units, a no fence requirement is totally up to you and 100% approved. But if you're selling them, I'm not going to tell the buyer that they can't put a fence down the middle.
Well, I guess to further respond, I don't know if I answered directly. I do like to provide direct answers. So we would be more than open, I think, so I don't want to speak for him. It's his money. Would be to remove the fence down the middle in between the buildings and place a fence that just separates the front and the backyard, let's say. So kids can be let out in the yard with mothers, we'll say within gentle view of a mother. And that way would eliminate any potential conflict that we may have with fire or something of the sort. So I think it's a valid point. 3 feet is essentially a corridor.
But that's just your request upon building, and you can't hold tight to that once it's sold, right?
If it's in the planned unit development agreement, they're obligated to follow it. That's land use, that's law, similar to any other development. So Taryn, just so we understand, and also with your client, you're willing to just say, hey, we won't put any fences right here. During this little corridor between the buildings, that right there. You won't put a fence in there or inside there.
I'm certainly willing to consider that.
It's not my ask of you.
Well, I mean, I want the property to be ultimately safe. And so if there's a safety issue with fire concerns being able to get to that second floor, and the solution is writing the PUD so that there can't be a fence there, then that's the solution. I also have concerns around safety and being able to provide that to buyers so mom can have the kid in the backyard safely. So I do, aesthetically, but also for safety, there's an intention behind that fence. So I don't know, Taryn's been masterful in finding a solution for most things that come to this. We have to talk about it, but I'm certainly willing to take that fence out or not build it. And it's cheaper to not build it, so in my case, I'm more than happy to spend less. But I do need the property to be safe and fulfill the tenant and or owner's needs.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question. Councilman Brannon's right there.
Are you done?
Well, I say this because I don't want to like make this personal at all. I'm going to go down that road just a little bit. I don't know anything about you and your family, but if you had a teenager, right, in one of those middle windows in that little 6-foot alley,
Oh, absolutely.
would you feel comfortable with that, with your kid getting rescued out that window?
Yeah, I don't. I live in I don't. It's such a personal question. No, I mean, as far as I'm concerned with my teenager, there's nothing you could build safe enough, right? But I live in a 2,500 square foot nice home.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, I want to look at it, and if there's if there's code that supports, we can do it. But if there's also like, well, what's the right thing to do? I'm gonna err on the right thing to do.
And if I may jump in too, the building code has been refined for decades and decades. If there were a safety issue, it would have been addressed. I'd like to say that I had some say in the building code. No. People much wiser and more experienced and smarter than I am have, and we're talking architects, engineers, building officials, contractors. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that contribute to the wellspring of knowledge that's in the building codes.
Right.
So the likelihood of there being a risk, something that we can concoct above and beyond what the building code addresses, is essentially zero. So fire rescue is a concern. You're actually probably something that's not known widely is that if you are located above 8 feet with a window, you have now window protective measures that stop toddlers from falling out of windows. So you can only open your window so much. So anyway, there are a slew of measures that are taken to try to the best possible degree provide for the safety and well-being of the occupants of the building. So as designed, these meet and exceed those measures.
Okay. But not the city ordinance as printed.
So the acceptance setback, no.
Okay.
Which is why we're here to ask.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And sir, for your request to not do pavement, can you be honest with me? What's the real reason we're asking for that?
My understanding was drainage for the property.
Because is it too dense to have the water retention stuff?
No. Trying to figure out a really easy way, understandable way to address this particular issue. The more asphalt you have, the bigger your roads, the more roads you have, the hotter your town is going to be. We live in the desert. We have no stormwater system that goes into our lagoons or goes into water reclamation or anything of the sort. So everything that hits that asphalt, that doesn't go through the asphalt, that gets shed to adjacent properties or into seepage beds that we know in town will fill up with debris and sand and dirt and eventually don't seep so well. So as an attempt to address that on a small project, using clever creative solutions. Again, I'd love to say that I came up with these, someone much wiser and more clever than I did. There are a slew of mechanisms that are tried and true to help reduce the urban heat island effect, to help stormwater detention or stormwater infiltration. This is a project I thought was perfect because the driveway does not access a public street, but rather an alleyway that we would be willing to repave, even though it's hardly better than a gravel road now, and we're willing to repave that. Ultimately, I don't think whether or not we were able to use a gravel parking and drive lane would determine whether or not the project gets built. But we do think it would be better long-term, both for the city and for the residents, and provide a working, creative solution. And that's really.
So there is a way, to basically slope your parking stalls down to a little gutter system and then run it to a collection.
Swell, absolutely.
Swell.
Absolutely.
Right there.
So, I thought this may come up from planning and zoning. They mentioned it, and they really honed in on that is what they thought maybe could have been better refined. And so I mentioned that there are all sorts of different. I went on a trip to Japan not too long ago, and saw them using it all over the place. Why? Because Japan's an island and it rains a lot. Well, they don't want to pave everything, so what do? And they use something similar to what you see on the screen. I had a brain fart there, and I called it like chicken wire. It's not. So foolishly, it's a geogrid. They have clever names for it, but it meets the needs. I mean, you can get these grids so that dump trucks can park on and drive over them. But the intention is that the gravel stays where it is, and you retain infiltration through what would otherwise be paved. So I guess I'll say it, they beat us over the head both in school and then outside of school. This isn't the 1970s or 80s anymore. We don't want Kmart parking lots right off a roadway that have 10% occupied parking stalls that heat up everything around you. We're looking for another solution to that.
Councilman Bennett?
Well, thanks for that, because the issue that I was going to touch base on was also the gravel parking. Do we have any long-term studies on it? Do we have any? I mean, this is if I look at your picture behind it, the cars look like they're covered, and so you've got another 6 or 7 feet behind there that you're kind of talking about generating heat and things like that, right? But I do think that there is. I don't know that we're quite there yet to start this. It seems like once we start this, then we're creating a precedent and things like that. So I don't know how big of a problem it is to go from something that meets city code on the parking from what you've got. That would be my input, because I did talk to, after planning and zoning, and I was going to bring it up here, I did talk to a couple of the planning and zoning folks about this issue, and I think that you got some yeses and some nos simply because they just didn't know. And so until we do know, I would like to go with what we have in ordinance on that. That's just kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay,
Mayor.
Councilman Green.
So I'm just looking at it, and I'm wondering if there's any way that we can, like a building can be moved a few feet to the south, which would create another foot or two in between the buildings. Because we see the larger area there to the south, where the trees are. How much of a setback is that off of?
I think we have a foot or two, so there's a possibility.
Because if we can expand the in-between houses, in-between units, that might help. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilman Brennan.
Brock, where he's talking about, is that considered a side yard, or is it a front yard, is it a backyard?
So a corner lot essentially has two front setbacks.
Two
So,
fronts, okay.
For the R4 district, I believe it's 15 feet. That they need to be off both South 14th East Street and also East 2nd South Street.
Just say no minimum.
It looks like
coverage,
you've got
15 foot
you got like
rear setback.
more than 15 setback for that right side.
15 from the sidewalk.
Well, yeah, it's 15 from the sidewalk, so you got 4 foot for the sidewalk.
It's a very strange property line. There's a property pin in the middle of the sidewalk.
So it's 15.
Yeah.
Ah.
So that sidewalk's not actually up against the property line.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan.
Brock, as reading in this application here, it says city code specifies a minimum lot size for R4 zone is 5,000 square feet. Minimum street frontage 50 feet. No maximum lot coverage. 15-foot rear setbacks and side setbacks of 5 and 12. So it doesn't specify front yard.
No,
So-
not in this, no. But that's just generally for our code, how the interpretation is. So like in our code, we have a chart that says if it's next to a road or is a corner lot, essentially you have 2 front yard setbacks.
So where do I find the actual code for a front yard setback in the R4 zone?
In city code.
Yeah.
Is it just didn't get printed in here? We got all the other front backs or side and back, but not front.
Well, because he's not deviating from the front setback. That front setback meets code.
Why?
And the only thing included in there are the requested deviations.
Paragraph 7 on page 5 says what code is. Paragraph 8 says what the request is. So I'd like to know officially what the front yard minimum is per code. Karen, is that to the inch that meets what you know the code to be?
I actually give myself a foot buffer.
Okay.
Because of experience.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going down this route to, I guess, help his question. If we bump it out, then now we're asking for another variation to the PUD.
I would rather have the variation on the outside rather than in between the houses, or the units.
So, Brock, here's my question to you. If everything is done per code,
They don't need a PUD, but the entire reason that we have a PUD ordinance is to allow creative solutions and to allow certain deviations as long as it doesn't sacrifice life safety.
right?
Which this project has been reviewed by our fire marshal multiple times from pre-application to here to now. So, and I can tell you that the governing rules have been met. That you have a certified architect, a certified building official who has been willing to put their name, their reputation, their certification to say this is safe. And I have kids. I'm not saying that you can't be too safe, but any additional requirements for the sake of safety that you would be putting on are additional to the buffers from trained professionals that are already present.
Thank you. Okay. You see, I can't clear that.
Are we looking at number 7 in that chart? The
Yes, we're looking right here. So front,
rear loaded garage.
rear, and then you have street. So those are interpreted,
They're all 15.
yeah, 15.
Okay. What's that distance?
Eats up a lot of your site. What's that?
What's the distance there for the edge that that Councilman Green was asking about?
Outside.
15.
So I have 6'3" between the buildings. I think if I understand Councilman Green correctly, he's asking if we can put another foot. So rather than 6'3", we'll say we're 7 feet between the buildings.
Right. Well, what I was saying is how from the sidewalk to the side of the unit on the south side.
On the south side.
Yeah.
Right. So
You'd have enough play
To move
to
the
expand
building.
it.
potentially, it's been a little while since I looked at dimensions. So if I did, if that would satiate, I guess, the concern, then absolutely. It's not a big ask whatsoever. I guess I can assure you that the space between the buildings, it's, I know we're a smaller community and things are just starting to ramp up. There are buildings like this all over the country. And it is uncommon. It would be very, very rare that something happened that was life-threatening.
Mayor, council, on that with that side back, I mean, it is a side, but it's still that street side. you start moving the house closer, you get road noise, there's just a
Right.
lot more. So that's why that's that 15 on a corner all the way to keep the buildings away from the road.
Councilman Brennan.
To piggyback off that too, like you can see a straight line of building in this photo. Well, there's a rendering. I guess it's not a photo, but I would assume everything is in that line of that same setback. So I worry about that too. But I still want to see a 5-foot setback interior per unit. It's like
5 feet each lot.
So he wants to see 10 feet.
10 feet between right there.
There's no room to do that.
Right.
We'd have to eliminate units, and then you get into questions about density and, you know, who pays for the roads. Do you want 6 people or do you want 4 people? It's in my presentation.
All right, Councilman Green.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the rezone R4 PUD entitled Freerfield R4 PUD with conditions.
There's been a motion. Do I hear a second?
Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So, just for the rezone purposes, this is not where item number 4, action item number 4 is where we would discuss the gravel. I just want to make sure that, am I thinking that correctly? Correct. Okay, second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Bundy.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Nay.
All right, let's run down to action item 3 now. The deliberation decision on Planning and Zoning Commission recommendations of findings and facts to approve vacating a portion of college additional subdivisions with conditional staff report provided on June 14, 2023. Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor,
Councilman Green.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve vacating a portion of college addition subdivision with conditions.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilman Bundy.
Aye.
All right, let's run down to action item number 4, deliberation decision on Planning and Zoning Commission recommendations of findings of fact to approve the preliminary plat for Fairfields PUD with conditions. Staff report provided via email June 14, 2023. Council, what do you want to do? Councilman Brennan.
Make a motion to deny the planning and zoning's recommendation for the preliminary plat for your fields.
So there's a motion. Do I hear a second? Hearing none. Council? Don't all jump at once.
I think, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Flip the coin. Councilman Brennan.
Is this, Brock, is this one that a denial is tied to a year waiting list or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, so all of this one, so you approve the PUD, the plat has to meet whatever is set in the PUD of what's there. Now if you wanted to, at this stage, you could tie, if you have an issue about the gravel, if you have an issue about the setbacks, that's something we can tie there. It would have been cleaner to tie it both here and also to the PUD because the PUD sets it, but those options are still on the table.
Okay, Councilman Bundy or Councilman Green, do you want to say anything?
Go ahead, Councilman Bundy.
I was looking at number 4 to approve it with the change in the gravel to standard code parking.
Asphalt?
Asphalt.
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Green?
That was also my recommendation, was the asphalt for the parking.
Okay.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
I don't want to truly like deny the whole project. I want to send it back to P&Z for the parking issue, the gravel parking issue, and for the setbacks. And it's really just the 2 strips between the 3 buildings there.
Okay. All right, council, what do you guys want to do? Treasurer. Oh, sorry, Taryn.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, some other possibly suitable alternatives to gravel would be something like permeable pavers, where grass and things can grow up, and again, you still get the infiltration rate. If there's concern about gravel, don't know if we've had anything like that here, but again, it's pretty tried and true. I'm more than happy to send a plethora of research and studies done over decades. It's not new. We can also do what, I always forget the name, but they're wheel trails, and where you have grass in between. Those were common in the 1950s and 60s for driveways. And so, as a suitable alternative, let's say, we can still meet our stormwater retention requirements for the site if it were to be paved. I guess I'll speak for myself. I do think that trying some alternatives is suitable. I think it's time. And this is a great community. This would be a small project where something like that could be tried out, and we could provide long-term information for us all. But it has been done. So,
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey.
My only concern, Tyrion, about that is I have seen it hand over fist of how many tenants don't take care of even just their properties that are paved driveways, and what I see in my mind is a big jungle of weeds. If we do only a gravel parking lot, what if any, have there been any measures put in place to mitigate those types of issues also?
Yes, so I believe that what's being proposed would be either, well, not either, it would be a mixture of rentals and for purchase townhomes. And certainly for the rentals where our client, the owner, will retain ownership of those lots, that can be placed in there. And we could definitely make this part, I believe, I would have to defer to Brock and to legal, I believe that can be included as like an HOA agreement or an agreement of purchase.
Being that there's a final plat, we could ask for an HOA agreement to be presented at time of recording, which needs to be recorded at the county.
We certainly, so Councilwoman Garvey, we certainly don't want this to be a nuisance by any stretch of the imagination. We understand the concern.
Certainly, yeah. And that becomes a code enforcement issue, and then it becomes a city problem, and I just see it time and time again. It's really unsightly.
All right, Councilman Brennan?
I agree that kind of the mess it can make, but in this environment, doing the pavers with grass in between requires a sprinkler system.
It does.
Now, so now we're kind of trying to move water and trying to put water onto it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need to go back to the drawing board on that.
Okay, so council, what do you guys want to do? Sorry, what do you want to do? Councilman Brennan?
I'll make a motion to send this back to P&Z requesting the applicant look at setbacks, widening the interior setbacks, and the parking situation.
What's your motion?
It's my motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilman.
I just have a question. I apologize. I have a question concerning that. Do we have the potential, it's already been seconded, so it doesn't matter now, but just so I know for future, we'd have the potential to table it, not bring it back to P&Z, but allow the applicant to bring it actually back to council if we allowed it to be tabled. Am I correct?
Yes.
So that it doesn't have to go all the way back to planning and zoning?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Where's the substantial change at that would require to go back?
I do not think the material change is the surface lot of the parking.
What about the setbacks?
The setbacks, so it becomes a material generally in the parlance of the court system, in the cases,
is when the setbacks are changed to such a degree that you are adding more lots. That would certainly be a material change in circumstances. But whether you're shifting it this way or that way a little bit, probably not.
Okay. Councilman Bundy?
Definitely not.
Yeah, I would agree that, I think that our big question here, and I do appreciate your concern on the setbacks, is the parking lot. If we can do a motion to pass it where the parking has to be done within code, within the ordinance that we have, then I think we've answered the question, where the only thing they can do is something that agrees to our ordinance. And my guess is, but before you pull your building permit, you're gonna have that approved. So I think we would take care of the gravel parking lot if we make a motion that the parking lot has to be done according to city code. And then we avoid a rehash of this, and there's nothing wrong with talking about it, but I think at the same time, because we've already approved the earlier issue on it, and now we're basically hung up on the parking lot, so if that's an option, I'll make that motion.
So there's a motion already made and a second.
Then I'll make an alternate motion.
Okay.
And I will second the alternate motion.
Let me make it.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize.
It doesn't work that way.
So hang on a second, we gotta vote on the first motion. Hang on a second, we gotta vote on the first motion. So, there's a motion, second, any further discussion?
Mayor, I just want to defend my point again about second story safety. If somebody's screaming out the window there, you ain't getting a ladder to them. So I hope that doesn't, with the fence in the middle. I hope it never comes to that. Like, just because the minimum building code has been met doesn't mean like we can't sustain our ordinance with five foot rather than 3 foot setback. I tell you what, I'm fighting for my kids in that second story window.
Okay. So there's a motion and second. I'll call for the question. Hear any more? I'm gonna call for the question. Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Bundy?
Nay.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Nay.
Okay.
Using the vote.
I'm gonna go with nay. So, you wanna make a motion, Councilman Bundy?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bundy.
I make a motion to approve Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, finding of facts to approve the preliminary plat for Fairfields PUD with conditions, with the change that the gravel parking lot be completed, that it will not be a gravel parking lot, and that it will be completed according to city code.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion and seconded. I'll call, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Bundy? Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Nay.
All right. All right, let's go down to action item number 5, deliberation decision on Mellon Water District land lease. All right, this one's for Paul, I guess, or Tiff, or how do we work this one out? I didn't go to the meeting. Was there? Yeah, there was a meeting.
Mayor and council, there are members of the Mellon Water Board here. Once Taryn and Brock shift away, I think they can come forward. Paul, Councilman Brennan, Councilman Green, and I attended the Mellon Water meeting. We had a pretty frank discussion with the board, and we've asked them to attend the meeting to give an update to you all. So.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you for, state your names for the record, please.
My name's Erica Pedroza.
Tom Horgan. My name is Davis French.
You want me to take it away?
Yeah.
Okay, so we attended your guys' meeting. As you all are aware, it was a 30-year land lease that your guys' well sits on. So since our meeting, what information do you all have?
Well, first of all, we wanted to apologize on behalf of the board members because we did not receive the letters stating that, as board members, we didn't receive them, stating that the lease had ended. and that we needed to renew it back in March. I believe today, Davis went and got all that information, so we've been brought up to date on that. So we did want to humbly apologize for that, because this should have been addressed earlier and it should not be brought to this point. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. With that being said, we're not sure. According to the letter, it says that we're done with that lease and that we cannot renegotiate, so we're not sure what to do with that. But we would like the opportunity to talk to council and be able to bring this up and really get informed of what our rights are as a community and for our residents that live there, because it impacts over 100 families, I believe, that are there. So we didn't have enough time. It's like 2 weeks with the holiday. It's been really tough to get a hold of people and set up appointments and stuff like that. But we have reached out to a legal team, and we're waiting for an appointment to be set. But once we have that, we would, I believe our next meeting is coming up, and we'll be coming to all the meetings and just giving you an update on where we're at. And if we can get some guidance from you as to who we need to talk to with the city, that would really help us know what to do, because we're all new. They're not as new as me, but we're all new to this.
Tiff, go ahead. It's your show. No, it's one of those things where we want to be good neighbors too. We want to make sure that nobody goes without water. But we do follow the letter of the law, and we follow by the book, and it's not Mayor Sykes that wants your well. I want you to know that. I don't want your well. I got my other wells that we're dealing with. So, but we want you guys to be your own self-sufficient. We want you to not need us. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think the city's been very generous in letting you stay on the system until you guys fixed your issues last year. Was it last year?
There was an issue last year, yeah.
And we currently are on city water rate.
And so we want you to know that we're not heartless, mean people, but we do want you to know that we're, I think we're willing to work it out, right, Councilman and councilors up here and back Councilwoman Garvey. So with that, what do you guys want to do?
Mayor, question?
Yes.
Have you been able to find any of the questions about your water rights? How old they are? How much? You mentioned legal counsel really quick. Have you made any progress?
We haven't been able to make any progress on that. I did reach out to the Idaho Water Board District, but everybody in government and city offices take long vacations, let me tell you. So, especially around the holidays. So it's just been, and I think it's just busy with everything that's going on around the state. So we have not been able to meet with them, which is unfortunate, because we were hoping by now we would have been able to get moving on that a lot faster. But as soon as we know anything, we will have everything documented and recorded and share it back with the city.
At this point too, with your board, have you communicated with all of your residents about the potential impacts that this has?
We have not, because we're not sure what to communicate with them yet until we can get enough. And we have to gather all the facts. And I would like to reduce as much hearsay as possible. And so we could, once we have all the facts, I think then is when we would start presenting it to them, and that would be hopefully really fast. But we do need to make sure that we get counsel and that we represent them, because they are counting on us to represent them the best as possible, and that we communicate with all of them.
So can you tell me what happened to your well, or what's going on with it currently?
I did talk to the engineer earlier today, and so what happens is that there's a lot of sand and sediment in there, and so what's happening is getting into the well and the motor, and so that's causing it to break down. Mm-hmm. They did have a plan. Their plan was to put he had a video was going to go down there and record and see what was going on, so that they could fix that, because that is kind of a known issue in Idaho. And so there is a way to work around that, but we kind of just stopped it because we were not sure how to proceed or what we were going to be able to do, and we want to hold on to the funds so we know how to spend them the best way possible. Okay. But he did have a plan to go in there with a video, record, see what's going on, so that they could get to the root cause of it, so that this doesn't happen again, because those wells were supposed to last quite a bit. And it seems like the well is, the motor and the pump are good, but the sand and the sediments that are getting in there are causing it to break down. So we need to make sure we get to the root cause of it and not keep band-aiding it.
Sure. What other things were that you guys asked them for?
We needed to know, Frank, like, we wanna know, and obviously they wanna know, a frank review by their engineer. Is this thing, what are the cost benefits of continuing to, repair this well versus, what's the viability of if they would just simply join the city system? What was expressed is what we can't have is have basically a defunct system and them constantly being on our system, because as they got to sit through tonight, one of the rules of approving any plat of anybody who wants to legitimately join the city is better have water. And if we continually have this without an agreement, an extraterritorial arrangement with the Mellon district, is they're neither a customer nor not, and they're sort of just defunct acting as city residents without paying any of the connection fees, without doing any of those things. And so the status quo couldn't continue, and so what they needed to know, what we expressed to them is, there are, and only their engineer would know this, is there are funding mechanisms that maybe they can get, not free money, but essentially free
DEQ loans and
DEQ loans and all that. If they wanted to repair, because it's not only the well, it's also the distribution system, it's all these kinds of things that they need to know, frankly, what their window is before it's dead on, you know, I'm gonna use a water pun.
So we know it's gonna take a little bit of time to gather all that information, so like I said, 2 weeks wasn't enough to get enough, just barely getting started on coming up with more questions. But yeah, we definitely want to know. That was one of the things the engineer was talking to me about. He said, we need to know we can fix this, and if not, then go and say, hey, we need to join, what do we gotta do to do it?
Right.
And so we're not there yet.
Hey Rich, did you have an opportunity to look into this or anything, or? Okay, I just wanna know what if Keller had said anything, or if we talked to our engineer, or if we had talked to our subject matter experts. That's Marina.
Guys, I'm not gonna ask you by any means like what the bank account balance for the district is, but like just sitting up here long enough, I'll tell you, like, no matter what action you take, it's gonna be really expensive. And I don't know if you're increasing dues immediately to help cover that for the district, but if no action is taken other than like we're gonna find a lawyer and we're gonna, you know, do all this geo mapping on how we can best do this, it's gonna cost a lot, and I hope like we're ready for that, because I feel like we need to put a hard time frame as to the next step, not necessarily the end result, but each step along the way I feel needs a deadline.
And with that, I think what he's trying, well, I'm not gonna speak for him, but we can't subsidize, and Paul has told us that's illegal. We had some sewer things that we ended up figuring out that we can't do that as well. So I want you guys to know that it's illegal for the city to subsidize. So as us trying to be good neighbors, I think we need a timeline, a firm, like, hey, it's gonna take us 2 weeks to do this. I need another 2 weeks to get, like, can you, I think, give us that timeline.
And I think that's where we need to know we need to know everybody we gotta talk to, so we know where that would fall along, because I honestly couldn't tell you what that would look like right now without having enough information as far as what the city would want, what the engineers look like. Like, I don't know. I'm being very honest, and that's why we're very unprepared for that, and so we need the opportunity to get prepared. And I don't know where that conversation is gonna go next. Besides, we need to find out what we need to do next, as far as, we know the well's right now it's not being worked on. We are aware of that, because if we don't have the option to renew the lease, we have no option but to join the city. And if we're going to join the city, now we need to know what that looks like as far as cost to the residents, cost with the city. Does anything that we have already in place count towards it? What kind of grants do I need to look for? How much time does it take to get them? Like I don't know that information. If you do, please tell me. But that is where we need help in that. So we're not prepared for that.
And I'll put this, I think being good stewards, I think Rich could probably get you to the right people to get you those answers, especially when it comes to the DEQ loans, the water loans, things of that nature. If you guys want to continue to be on your own separate stuff, I think Rich could probably help you locate those numbers and probably expedite maybe a few phone calls for them and help you guys to expedite it instead of not knowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Councilman Green?
Go ahead before I start with my question.
What you guys kind of need, what they probably want to know from you, and what's on the table here. The only thing that's on the table here right now is they have an expired lease. So now they're technically, just like any renter who's on somebody's property without a lease, they're not allowed to be on it. I mean, technically. Now, of course, we're two governmental entities. Let's work this out. But what you guys need to decide and figure out what you want to do is, do you want to enter into another lease with the Mellon District to use the city's land, and they would rehabilitate their well? Now, of course, the question you would have is, can you rehabilitate your well, or is it just a goner and it's just going to be a bottomless pit kind of scenario? And that's for you guys to figure out with your engineer and all that, and the funding that you could maybe get to fix it. However, do you want to enter into another lease? If you do, now the question of, basically, what type of burden will it be upon the water system that now you can't do another subdivision approval or something? Right. Because they're essentially become city customers, but without actually doing it. That goes back to the viability of the well. Let's say the well does become viable, but every once in a while, I think last year was like 9 months or something, and they're on it now. And so the question is, at what rate? So when you have extraterritorial customers, and city customers pay in with a connection fee, and then they pay the O&M and all that stuff, and so they have this rate. Well, when you do extraterritorial customers, you usually put a premium on it because they never did pay the connection fee. But now you're doing business with an extraterritorial customer. And so you have to all of this is like absent in the 30-year-old lease. Imagine that. So the old, I was aware of the lease coming up on it, and I was like, okay, this lease can't go forward the way it is. It's just antiquated, not very well written. There's lots of loopholes that it's like, well, what do we do? Which is kind of how we're in this mess. And so the question is, just as a general notion, do you want to have them explore the option with their engineer to simply join the city, or do you want to have them explore the option of doing another lease on different terms, of course? So it's like, where's this well going? And I know you can't really answer that question without knowing the viability of the well. That's the first step.
Right.
So, Mayor.
Councilman Green?
So I would like to table it for the next meeting, basically giving them enough time to, because of the holiday that we had in between the last meeting, to give them the amount of time to be able to contact the entities they need to make sure their well is viable, to make sure that they have the information they need so that we can all move forward.
Okay. Councilman Buddy?
Could we, and I agree with some type of a time frame here. Could we do, because you said if the lease is expired, they have no right to go on the land, correct? So technically, so we could, in this meeting, give them some amount of time access to the land, correct?
Yes. I mean, it's as simple as a landlord, just kind of.
Well, or we could say,
that.
while we're doing this, you have access to the land.
Yeah.
Now, when we get into the lease, if this takes more than 2, 3, 4 weeks to figure out, can we do recurring 3-month leases or 6-month leases, or?
We can, except, like I said, the terms of the leases that has to be it just has to be changed. It's just an
Okay.
antiquated system.
So maybe at this point, we're just gonna give them permission to be on the land, to figure this out,
For the next meeting.
come to the next meeting, and then hopefully have a better vision of where we're at.
Go ahead, Tiff.
Mayor and Council, can I ask that we move it to August 8th? The reasoning is that allows city staff to work with our legal and you guys into what it looks like on our end. We can then coordinate with some of these guys during business hours and then bring you back a solid thing August 8th. Does that work?
I'm okay with that. I'll amend the
Rich,
motion.
does that work for you?
So Erica, Tom, and Davis, I'll say that Tiffany, Paul, this council have seen some very horrible contracts, and we have been bitten hard with a lot of them, and we're very gun shy of getting into contracts anymore with anybody. And Paul could probably go on hours about talking about it. So I want you guys to know that.
Curse, so I won't.
Yeah. Forefathers did great work, and then sometimes legal didn't do so great, maybe, if that's the best way to articulate it. So we want you to know that whatever we get into, it's got to be fair for the citizens of Mountain Home, and you as well, but in the same sense, I want you guys to know that contracts is just no bueno for maybe when you get your DECO loan and you can buy it from the city, or maybe there's a workaround since you're a government entity, and we're a government entity. Just food for thought, but we'll do the if council's amenable to the August 8th, gives you guys some time, gives Rich some time to help you guys get some information if that's copacetic, and then we'll keep moving on from there.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan.
I totally agree with that. I'd come back on August 8th, and then to further that, I'd say give them to the next meeting, the second meeting of August, to accept our temporary lease or to reject it. And if you reject it, I mean, well, then I don't know where we're gonna be. But
they'll be without water.
but we'll give you like 2 weeks to discuss it amongst yourselves privately, and then answer back. My continuing request, as I did for this meeting, is I'd like to see you here at every one of our meetings with an update.
I could tell you, and Rich could tell me if I'm 100% wrong, but when you get with your engineer, I'm pretty sure there's grant money that's there for you as governmental entity. There's money to be had for that.
Yeah, so back in the day, maybe there's another option. They could do their own LID or something.
There's lots of us. I'm the one that told them that they needed a lawyer.
Right.
She asked me, was like, should we get a lawyer? I'm like, yeah, you because LIDs, grants, there's just all kinds of ways to skin this cat.
And in all reality, by August 8th, we probably won't have a lease agreement drafted ourselves.
Oh.
So, not saying our legal doesn't work fast.
That's what it sounds like.
Other legals don't work
Salmon
as
River next
quickly.
week, so.
So, I'm just saying, it allows us, I can get your guys' specific questions, we can table them to them, we can all find the data we need and go from there.
I think legally, we need to have some questions answered on our end, so we're not sitting there holding the bag and getting in trouble.
I just wanted to make sure that this was moving, not just staying language, because we arguably are subsidizing them right now, and that makes my twitch come back.
Hence, we had to change the other agreements. Council, are you copacetic with everything?
Yep. Motion stands.
Table.
Table. So you want to vote on that, or is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, your motion. Do I have a second?
We need a motion to table, or do we just table?
No, you do.
Okay, second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Table till August 8th.
Yes.
Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garby?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Bundy?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
All right. Thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you. Thanks for sitting through that. Yeah, thank you. I'll reach out.
Wasn't a discussion, it was an action.
Okay. Would anybody like to get up and speak?
Oh, we missed it.
Yeah, the mapping, John Matthews.
Oh, sorry, John. Run down to action item number 6.
Waiting on this whole night.
Deliberation decision on creating a new resolution for mapping fee and set a public hearing date.
Yes, Mayor, Council. In your packets, there should be a letter that was written, and basically in a nutshell, this is saying that over the last 18 years that I know of that I've worked for the city, we have produced large maps, 36 by 48 inch maps for whoever wants one. The price of those maps are $15 a piece. Now over this time, I did some research, and the city of Mount Home and the city of Cuna are the only two cities in the valley that still produce paper maps. Everybody else, if you want a map, they'll send you a PDF. How you're going to print them is up to you. Cuna will print off these maps, but Mountain Home also does scanning. If you bring something in, you want it scanned, a set of blueprints for your house or whatever, we can scan them, print them off for you as well for the same price. So what I'm asking is that over this time period, there's never been council approval to charge, not a charge, raise the price, lower it, anything. We've just decided to do it one day. So I'm here to ask for something official that says $15 will get you a map.
So to add to that, City Council, John Matthews has done his research. He calculated the cost of the actual printing, the cost of staff time, and surprisingly it came to approximately $15. So whenever it was implemented, I think their head was in the right place, but we don't want to cowboy things. We don't want a department just throwing out fees to throw out fees that are not approved. So this is more or less a housekeeping item. If we can get this approval, we'll get with our city clerk and we'll post it and make sure it's all legit. But I just want to applaud John for seeing that. And also, he's kind of an unsung hero. In the handout you got for the Silverstone North Plat, he's the one who looked at deeds and looked at legal descriptions and made that. And it's an invaluable service. So, you know, kudos to him for that. Kudos for him for bringing this up. And we hope that this can further help us out to be effective.
Councilman Bundy.
I think it's a great idea. I might add one little caveat, and I think that you've already thought this one through. Something about a nonprofit that pulls a map for a city benefit. For example,
exactly.
The American Legion pulls a map every year so that they can benefit the city through putting the flags down. I think that this is great for other people that are pull it, but somehow we have in there that when it's pulled to benefit the city at large, that there wouldn't be a fee. That would be my only input. But I think other than that, I think it's when folks want to come in and look at developments and things like that, I think it's more than fair for that not to be a taxpayer burden, but that to be a burden of the industry. So that's my only thought would be the group like the American Legion pulling it for us, and they do it at the cemetery.
Councilman Brennan.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that too. The only road I wanted to go down was the scanning issue. How often is that used?
Well,
and is that a benefit to the city of Mountain Home? Is that a service we need to direct our people to?
Well, it's the only service. If anybody has like a set of Mylar prints that they want to print off, we're the only game in town.
Now, this isn't necessarily an invite to find grandma's diaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the city will
not
scan
that.
them free of charge. But when it comes to construction drawings associated with construction applications, we do have all of our stuff online. We understand some people are old school and we want to accommodate everyone. That's something that we will do free of charge. If it's associated with an application or a requirement from the city. You know, and we're very nice. Like if there's a one-off thing, we are very citizen oriented. But if it was something substantial, that's probably something we wouldn't necessarily advertise to the public. We don't want to take away business from a private entity where that's what they do.
In the past, there's been, we had a lot of business, but now the people are, you get them digitally and things. As I indicated here, we do less than 10 of these a year. Scans or printing them out.
As far as
it's very limited.
The scans though, I see the rough cost of printing one map at time and the material at $15, but how much more time is involved with scanning a full set of blueprints? Like, I don't know how many pages blueprints has, but it's probably 10 at least, right? I don't know.
It's all digital. It's really pressing X, but there's a difference from scanning just one large document and then scanning 60 or 80. That's when staff time comes in.
Yeah, it's just the time of standing there and feeding it through as it scans it.
You know, do you have to do that with blueprints?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Unless they send me a digital copy and then I can just tell it to print.
yeah.
So it's about the same amount of time.
Just to feed in all the pages of the blueprints the same amount of time?
Pretty close, because usually I get the prints one at a time on the screen. I have to pull it up, say print, pull the next one up, say print.
And that's all considered one job?
Yeah.
For $15.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe what was being suggested was this was the price solely for printing.
Yes.
Oh, it's not scanning? Did I misread that?
Well,
Or maybe it was written like
it's
that,
all the
because-
same. Right now we charge the same price. I'm just wanting some kind of agreement. When somebody asks me, what do you charge, I know what to tell them.
So council, are you amenable to this, and if so, do you want to set a date for your public hearing?
Public hearing to August 22nd, because we'll have to post it in the paper.
August.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we set a public hearing for August 22nd.
Second.
Get all those specific questions.
Okay.
I guess backing up the bus here on the time frame of me standing there and feeding it in opposed to pushing the button. And when I say it all turns out to be about the same amount of time, it's opposed to me standing there however long that takes. What I'm scanning in is already drawn up and prepared. So that amount of time for me to sit down at the computer and draw something up or pull it up on the screen and take care of, I think it's a pretty close wash.
Same amount of time, just more labor intensive.
Yeah. Are you standing up and feeding it in, or are you sitting down and you're pulling up the file and telling it to print?
But this is solely for the printing.
So
But
there's
this
a
is
motion
printing.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Bundy?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
We're down to recognized person. Would anybody like to get up and speak? Not seeing anybody. All right. Final comments. Anybody got anything good for the order? Patriot Thunder this weekend. Okay. Go ahead.
Good for the order, if I may. This is going to be our last council meeting with Rock, and I know we've kind of announced that earlier, but I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you, and I know we haven't always agreed, and sometimes I make you mad, and vice versa or whatever, but never personal, and you've been an incredible asset to the city. So thanks for the time you put in here.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
We'll talk later. All right.
Mayor.
Taking into there you go.
I will make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code, section 74-206, 1C, 1F.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Buddy?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?